learning our Blackfoot language. And part of that is I just grown a deep affinity for our dogs. And our dogs have a very significant history in our Blackfoot history, one that stems further than we can measure. So in the ancient past, we have a word that we say imigo, that's. And people always translate it to the dog days, if you will. But it just means when the dog was our primary beast of burden. And it was very well known that there were people who would have up to 50 dogs. And they were well trained, if you want to use that word, but they just had good mannerisms. And here's some, I guess you could say, some ancient dogs. I always make jokes and say, I wonder how much like of those ancient dogs are still around our edge, you know. But so the Gundy is our ethnonym. That's what we call ourselves. It doesn't mean Blackfeet. But our relationship with dogs is old as time. We used to pull our travois, and they would pull our lodge poles and other supplies for our material wealth. There was a time when we would allow them to actually pull babies, but and this is an ancient story too, one dog saw a squirrel or something and ran off with a baby, and that baby was lost, so that practice stopped. But it was actually common for multiple dogs to pull the elderly. How that worked, I do not know, because in my life we've always had cars. So I can't express that, but I do know those stories exist. So our word for dog is imita. So everybody try saying that, imita. And the plain sign language, the way you make a sign for a dog, and I just kind of wrote it right here, is you kind of make a peace sign. But you don't do this. All you do is make this sign and you drag it across your chest. Why is that? Why do you think? That's the traveler. You're thinking, travel. And it's really important to understand that because we were, for lack of a better word, a nomadic people. Now, before I move on from that, I do want to emphasize that a lot of people say, oh, they used to follow the buffalo. You can't follow the buffalo. You would die. What we did is we would strategically put up a camp at a place knowing that the buffalo would be over yonder at a certain time of year, and we would do slash and burn techniques, or slash and char techniques, if you will. And you create charcoal, and that charcoal collects nutrients, and you got some new beautiful grass growing, and the buffalo really liked this new grass. So we were intelligent in that regard. We weren't just wandering the plains, Anyways. So our indigenous relationship with dogs, and just a show of hands, who here has ever been on either a Canadian reserve or an American reservation? And who has seen multiple dogs running around? So I'll just read. The sovereign tribes have retained land, and they have a different cultural landscape. It isn't mainstream Western America. It's an ancient culture that has a lot of holdover from thousands of years that we've lived on this landscape. And the concept of outsiders thinking they know better on how to address issues in Indian country is as old as this country. That thought disregards our history, our culture, and our sovereignty. That's really important to understand. It's a continued attitude of colonization that disrupts our natural relationship with animals. So community dogs, and by the way, all these pictures are pictures I've taken around Browning. This guy, he likes to roam around, I didn't take this picture though. Walter McClintock did, I believe. Anyway, so dogs persist because of our sovereignty and our legal relationship with the land. We allow them to exist in that way. And what I mean by that is our reservation borders represent not just some arbitrary line. Those are lines that our people negotiated and fought for and maintained. There are different reservations. There's 3 different types of reservations, and I'm sorry to go off on indigenous relationships with the United States in an animal expo, but that's just where we're at. And there's 3 different types of reservations. There's treaties, ones that were outlined by treaties. There's executive, ones that are outlined by the president, and then there's congressional, ones that are agreed by Congress. But it doesn't matter, because each reservation still retains their unique culture and a unique relationship with their animals. And and one might ask is, why is there a consistency of allowing dogs to run freely in Indian country? Because, the difference between Cherokee language, Navajo language, and Blackfoot language is the same differences between Italian, Pakistan, and Mandarin. Our languages are so uniquely different from ourselves that it's a really interesting thing that we have been racialized. When, we as a nation, we respect French sovereignty, we respect German sovereignty, and we don't call France, the French Caucasian country, or Germany, although the German Caucasian country, but for some reason, America is totally fine racializing us. Because it's really interesting that my reservation is legally called the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. I mean, there's no Blackfeet Italian reservation, It's just, language is used to oppress people. And the way that people will describe res dogs often is, they're pitiful, but we'll get there. See, the dogs roaming around our res is not out of a neglect or a lack of love, but out of respect. We respect a dog's autonomy to choose its own life, Colonizers, they treated indigenous people as animals. We still see that persist. As a matter of fact, I have a card in my pocket that lays out my racial pedigree. And my whole life I grew up, people say, the only things that have pedigree are horses, dogs, and Indians. But 5 years ago, I started thinking hey, res dogs don't have pedigree. And it's really interesting that we do not do to the dog what the U.S. government did to us. They put us in fences. They literally did not allow people to leave a reservation without a note from the Indian agent. We allow dogs to leave our yard. They don't need a note from the owner. And that's really important to talk about our relationship with dogs, because we don't see ourselves as higher than them. They're equal with us. And again, I don't mean to say that in some poetic way. It's just the truth. All animals have their own autonomy. Just because we can speak language and have opposable thumbs doesn't make us better than them. But Western culture has this thing different. What many outsiders don't know, or what they choose not to know, is that a res dog belongs to their community and they don't need to be saved. That's really critical. Res dogs exemplify one of the many disconnects between the perception of and reality of indigenous communities. And really what that means is that a lot of people, when I first left the res and went to college, people were like, those dogs are suffering. And I'm all like, your dog's suffering. Your dog has anxiety. Your dog lives in the city. The only time he gets to go outside is when it has a leash on him and he's halfway choking every time you take him out because it's so excited to get out. It's not a criticism on the individual. It's just where we're at in a society that, again, and I assume it's like this for Orlando, for pet owners, is you need to bring them to a dog park, right? To be a dog. Whereas the reservation is a dog park. It would be really, ironic or just not a good investment to build a dog park on a reservation. Anyways, people when people reinforce stereotypes towards any aspect of indigenous community, including res dogs, they miss out on opportunities to learn about and from those tribal nations. So again, when we look at res dogs and we just come to the conclusion that, oh, they're pitiful and need saving, you're robbing yourself from understanding a better relationship that you can have with dogs. What's really interesting is in the 1830s, one of the worst presidents of our history, I won't say his name, he sent out an ethnographer named George Catlin to write an ethnography about Indians. But also, one of his main duties was to observe the wild horse, because the United States was getting ready to domesticate all of this continent, and it was thought that the horse will no longer be wild. The only horses that will exist will be domesticated. I bring that up because our relationship with our horses is somewhat similar. They don't have the foraging abilities of a dog. Like, you're gonna find a red dog eating out of a diaper. You ain't gonna find a horse eating out of a diaper. But anyways, what I'm getting to is that on reservations, you can actually study dogs as a natural species and how they build friendships and everything. And that's actually kind of a huge thing, is that dogs are allowed to make friendships on their own. You know, they're not forced by their owner to play with a dog they don't like. You know? But that's a real important thing to take away, because again, it goes back to that respect. We're going to allow this dog to go hang out with the neighbor's dog. We're going to allow them to go cross town, because the reality is they do come back. Now, with that, some problems do arise. One of the biggest things is the safety issue and the packing. And it breaks my heart as a lover of res dogs to know that there have been deaths in Indian country, children and adults being mauled by packs of dogs. Now, I'm not the type of person to react and go, oh, kill all the dogs. Nor am I the person to think like, oh, you know, leave them completely alone. Just like humans, we do need some order and some direction. And this is something that is internal. And we do need help understanding this. And we do need resources to try to keep that pack mentality out. And that goes back to how do outsiders provide help? Well, there's community members. There are people who come and do spray and neuter clinics, which is very viable. But another thing too is like, if you were passing through a res and you see a dog, a cute dog, leave that dog alone. If it's cute, there's a 99% possibility that someone owns or takes care of that dog. I've had dogs taken, I believe. We had a really beautiful pup named Buck Chipoye, and he lived kind of by a highway. He ended up missing. And I'm one of those people that I like to walk around on the plains, and I didn't find his body anywhere. So the conclusion I came up with, someone took this dog. They saw this beautiful dog, 5 miles out of town, no collar. Because again, I don't want to put a collar on a dog because I've seen dogs hate it. And that dog was taken. So what do you do in this situation? Well, it's very simple. Almost every tribe has a Facebook. Has an official nation Facebook. Take a picture of that dog and put it on and go, whose is this? I'll give you 48 hours and I'm going to take it. At least we got 48 hours. And honestly, someone's going to comment on there, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so's dog. And they live about 2 miles from where you found that dog. So things like that you can do. And also, too, if you want to help a community, you have to establish relationships with that community. You have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation sometimes. And it might be uncomfortable meeting strangers. I know it's uncomfortable for me. But again, if I want to help out a community, you have to do that. It's really important to note that most dogs go to their respective homes at night to get food from their families. They know where they belong. They know who their families are. They're intelligent, and we trust that intelligence. And again, I don't mean to say that, oh, well, that must mean that city dogs are dumb. I don't mean that. What I mean is that they have that autonomy to leave and come back. They don't have the urge to run away because they're not pent up and they don't have anxiety. And again, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but just from my own observations, I think that dogs that are constantly having to live inside a house have a lot of anxiety. Because, even me, if I'm pent up in a house all day, I get anxiety. I need to go outside and breathe. And I assume that that's just more heightened for dogs. Community members keep track of their dogs, and a lot of us keep treats in our cars. My auntie, she keeps a whole bag of dog food every week. She gives the dog food away. Where she works, there's actually 2 dogs that basically have adopted her, and they show up every time she's at work. They know they're there. They park themselves. She feeds them. As a matter of fact, this next picture is one of those dogs. But this picture was taken during our powwow, and it's very likely that this family here, they probably don't even know who these 2 dogs are. I don't even know if they were aware that those dogs came walking by. Because it's one of those things that it's so normal to us, that things that are so normal you don't see at times. And I've been and I work for public schools, and I always tell kids, start counting how many dogs you see in the morning. And it works from K through 12. They come back, I saw 15 dogs today, all rolling around. And just, one thing I love about these dogs, actually I'll get there. Other dogs, in restaurants and our grocery stores, we give that food to dogs, which actually probably is something that corporate America could take a little bit of learning from us. Because to save money, they throw away the food, right? But for us, it's like, your dog has it. And it's so important. And dogs on the res are really happy. I can't emphasize that enough. Look at that guy. Look at him. I mean the dog. He's happy. And that's one of the dogs my auntie was feeding. And there was a study done, forgive me, I don't have the citation with me, where it was just a psychological study where they put people on the outside of a commons area, and they would frown and mean mug everybody who would walk in. And then there were people in the building counting how many people were smiling. And then they did that study again where the people on the outside were instructed to smile at everybody walking in. And it was across the board consistent that whenever you had people greeting and smiling, that people were smiling more. That's actually why Walmart has those greeters. But it's different when a corporation does it. But I like to believe our res dogs kind of do that on the res, And that's a good thing. On our res, we're fighting poverty, drug abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. We're dealing with eugenics and blood quality. And our dogs are not the biggest of our worries. Sad to say. And again, the reason why though is because there are those individuals who do help dogs. There's outsiders who come in and provide help and have created relationships with people on the res. And again, that's critical. We need that relationship. But there's a lot of us who are just can't help but feed the money. When I was in high school, I would always go get seconds, and I would always go outside and feed a couple of dogs. Anyway, just to go on and just to reiterate, it's really important to understand that our legal system on the reservation is kind of what the result of allowing dogs to roam around. I can't emphasize that enough. Because when you enter into the res, you are entering into basically, as defined by Congress, a domestic nation. Domestic dependent nation. But I want to emphasize that we make our own laws. We get to choose our own destiny. And for a matter of fact, this dog right here to the left, he ended up missing for a while. And the people who, they looked all over, and next thing they found him in an animal shelter, I think in Anaconda. Because again, some well-meaning person saw this dog, had no collar, pitiful thing, took him to Anaconda. Hundreds of miles from Browning. I know you guys, not everybody here knows Montana. 200 miles from where it lived. And it was sad. And they went to go get this dog, and they weren't allowed to grab him at first because they didn't have paperwork. This dog's don't have paperwork. But then they were like, oh, we have pictures of this dog. Because I take pictures of res dogs all the time. And because of those pictures, they were able to reclaim their dog. There was another dog that I took a picture of, and I put it on my Facebook. And right away, this one guy's like, oh, there's my dog. He's been missing for 10 weeks. And they live 12 miles away from where I took the picture. And you're like, when do you take this dog picture? I'm like, now. The dog's still there. He was at the church, hanging out at the Catholic church with another dog. And I thought, well, dogs are not monogamous, but they are known to tie the knot with various other dogs. Anyway, but again, just to clarify my points, red dogs are very happy, extremely happy, and it's a result of their economy. And there are dogs that need help. Every now and then you're going to find a dog who has just matted up, and that's because it's the owner abusing them. It's that neglect that they receive from their home. And it's not like that for every dog. And in a way, we're kind of free, more free than other people. Because, and this might sound cruel to people, but it's just common practice, is that if we leave for 3 days, we put out a big thing of food, but also since I live like on the plains, it's like, I don't need to worry about my dog because I know if he gets really hungry, he's gonna kill a gopher and eat it, And it's just our relationship with the dog, and it's just the way it is. And there are people in town who get sick of dogs because they're always outside barking around. Kind of like that scene in 101 Dalmatians, where one dog barks over here, next thing they're all barking. That happens a lot in the res. We just learn how to deal with it. But again, it's really important to know that these dogs they're in a loving space. There are people that love them all. And again, they provide for good companionship because we have a lot of alcohol problems on the res, and there's a lot of people who walk around town. And that's another thing, those people who walk around town, they're not homeless. They have a place to go. And not only that, they are where they need to be. They are on the res. We would not do what other cities in Missoula will do to homeless people. They buy them a train ticket or a bus ticket and say, hey, go to the next city. We'll buy you a meal. You just got to head out. We're not like that. We tell our street people, you stay where you're at. We love you. And the dogs hang out with them and are right there interwoven with their lives. It's really an amazing thing. And, and one could argue that it also provides for protection for people walking by themselves. Next thing you know, a couple dogs will be walking with you, and if you have treats in your pocket, hey, they're going to be your friends. And it does make other people stay away from you a little bit. It really does. It's a really amazing thing to witness. But again, my whole life, res dogs were just the norm. So it was really radical for me when I went to college, and dogs were walking around. Like, it was really odd for me. And as a matter of fact, it made me really sad. And I wanted to like go around and release all the dogs from the yards, right? Because I know better. But if I did that, I would be abusing those people. Because I would be acting like I know better than them. And we have to have an approach whenever we meet another culture. We don't know better than them. We might know something that can help them, but we don't know better. And that's just really important. Anyway.